Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suiswiki. Coming up,
we should be celebrating, not this happening at this time.
A motion of no confidence filed for Cook Islands Prime Minister. Also,
I just don't want it to happen to any other ordinary foreign visitor.
a beauty pageant judge barred from leaving Solomon Islands finally heads home. And what does the new Prime Minister of Vanuatu hope to achieve? A vote of no confidence motion has been filed against Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown and his cabinet over the comprehensive strategic partnership the nation will sign with China this week. It was pushed through by Cook Islands United Party leader Te Ariki Heather, who's also planning a protest on Monday against the Prime Minister's leadership. He's concerned about the nation's deteriorating relationship with New Zealand after the Foreign Affairs Office in Wellington said Mr Brown failed to properly consult Aotearoa on the Beijing deal. Caleb Fotheringham, who's in Rarotonga, has more.
Cook Islands opposition MP Te Ariki Heather says the Cook Islands want to keep their relationship with New Zealand. This year marks 60 years of self-governing and free association with New Zealand for the Cook Islands.
We should be celebrating, not this happening at this time.
He says New Zealand has come to his nation's aid many times.
The response from the government, from Vincent Peters and the Prime Minister of New Zealand, that's really what concerns us, because they are furious and waiting for the outcome of the China trip.
Mr Heather has filed a vote of no confidence motion against the Prime Minister and is also protesting against Mr Brown's leadership. Leader of the opposition, Tina Brown, will back his motion and also be at the protest. With only 8 opposition members in the 24-seat parliament, Ms Brown says the motion of no confidence isn't about the numbers.
It's about what are we, the politicians, the members of parliament, going to do about the two issues. And for us, the best way to demonstrate our disapproval is to vote against it in Parliament. Whether other members of Parliament join us or not, that's entirely up to them.
Ms Brown says after reading the Constitution and the 2001 declaration with New Zealand, she agrees with Foreign Minister Winston Peters that the Cook Islands should have first consulted with New Zealand.
Our Prime Minister has stated that the agreement does not affect anything that he is obligated to consult with New Zealand. I'm very suspicious of that. Why? Because if there is nothing offensive, why the secrecy then?
Many locals have been concerned by the lack of transparency from their government, but Cook Islands Foreign Minister Tinka Ilikana says that's not how these deals are done.
Agreements of this nature, there's a lot of negotiations until the final day when it is signed, and the Prime Minister is very open that the agreement will be made available publicly.
New Zealand's Prime Minister says the government will wait to see what is in the Cook Islands agreement with China before imposing any punishment. Mr Ilikana says he is concerned about consequences.
We're worried, but we want to see what will be their response. But we've always reiterated that our relationship is important to us and our citizenship is really important to us.
He didn't speculate about the motion of no confidence.
I think we just leave it to the day. But I'm very confident in our team having the full confidence in the Prime Minister.
Mr Brown has provided very limited details about the agreement, but says support for deep-sea mining research is part of it. Mr Brown's delegation is also made up of people from the Cook Islands Seabed Minerals Authority. Pacific political scientist Dr Yati Yati says most Pacific Island nations are looking for long-term sustainable development policies and believe this can only be served by maximising the use of their natural resources.
China has the expertise and technology and infrastructure to do this, and hence the Cook Islands are really just putting two things together, long-term development aspirations with a partner that has the capacity to achieve that.
Shona Lynch, country manager of mining company CIC Ocean Research, says Mr Brown's trip doesn't involve her company.
As CIC, we're totally separate from government and we keep that. What he does in the government space, his mandate, he has to look after the whole country. That's his job. And getting someone involved, maybe there's areas that China could help, I'm not sure.
Mark Brown's signing is set for tomorrow on his last day in China.
The head judge for the Miss Pacific Islands pageant, who's been accused of tampering with results, speaks out. Earlier this week, the Solomon Islands Minister of Home Affairs instructed the Immigration Division to impose a stop notice on all judges of the event, held on Saturday after receiving several complaints and allegations of fraud prior to Miss Samoa being crowned the new Miss Pacific Islands. The stop notice has been lifted, allowing Lea Tawalesa Jerry Brunt to depart for Samoa and his fellow judge Jane Canas to leave for Vanuatu. Although the stop notice was also extended to other judges, including Maata Maungaloa Tupou of Tonga and Pakop Sovo of PNG, they had already departed. The Solomon Islands government have stated that investigations into the pageant allegations are ongoing. Grace Fever spoke to Lea Tawalesa Jerry Brunt and began by asking him, were the results really rigged?
The whole confusion was in terms of reading out, and then they moved out the MC. So I think it was just the MCs not getting the whole program, and we really don't know. But when I went to the back, the head scrutineer was already there. The representative of the Secretariat of the Miss Pacific Island pageant was also standing there. And when I got there, I did inquire what was going on. Was there anything that would require the assistance of us judges? The head scrutineer came down and said, oh, it's just the confusion was the MCs didn't know which prices, which placing, which special awards to read first. And so it was just all that, and there was nothing into the scoring, because by that time, all the scoring the awards and placings were already in sealed envelopes, and we could tell they were yellow, orange envelopes, and they were sealed. So it was just nothing. And she said, no, we're okay. It's just the confusion was there. And then I said, all right, I'm going back. Now that there's nothing needed of us judges. But I did ask the head scrutineer to stay on at the back to make sure and to assist the MCs in reading out in that way. So the delay, really, it was just confusion on that, but nothing to do with the scoring.
What legal actions will you be pursuing when you get back into Samoa?
At this stage, I have already, with my legal team in Solomon Islands, that also helped put together documents and inquired and all the stuff that needed. That also contributed to my eventual release or a stop notice being lifted. We are already in the process of putting together legal action for my wrongful. They say it's not detention. It did not detain me, but my freedom to leave was affected. I wasn't allowed to leave Solomon, and I missed 2 flights.
And they didn't hand you like a warning or written?
Up to now, I have not been served with any copy of the supposedly stop order. I have not been given any grounds or of any reasons why the stop notice was put in place, other than what we all are speculating on, that it's something relating to the pageant. But there's nothing criminal in there. And the way they treated me at the airport when we checked in, went through security, and then got up to immigration, and that's where they said, you cannot leave. You cannot, and you're not getting on that flight because there is a stop order. A stop order today. I wasn't even shown any copy or anything. So I still don't know why they held me. So we've put together all that is needed so far, and it's already been drafted. I just don't want it to happen to any other ordinary foreign visitor for whatever purpose they are in Solomon. I just don't want it to happen to anyone that, by gossip. It really was gossip. It was all these speculations, with all this, and it created some sense of authority or intuition on the government of Solomon through certain cabinet ministers to put a stop order on me.
Is it true that you'll be suing Tonga as well, or?
At this stage, I am anticipating on that because so much has happened as a result of what this particular person did, the other judge. I really don't know where all this conspiracy theory came from, including me going up, ripping the judge's score sheets or papers and handed a result from me to the MC, me taking out results from my pocket. There were thousands of eyes looking down at where we were sitting. Thousands of eyes looking at the MCs. I really don't know where that came from. And really, the allegation or the conspiracy is that I rigged the results of the pageant. That it should be 5. 3 voted for Ms. Tonga, 2 voted for Samoa in the placing, and therefore it should. Even on that, it breached our duty as judges under the rules and regulations of the Miss Pacific Island pageant. Yeah, we should, as judges, we should not be discussing our score sheets with anybody, and that includes amongst ourselves.
Was there a recount? There was a recount, and then you all left in peace, and then you got stopped at the airport.
Yes. By Monday morning, I got a phone call from the organizing committee chair, a lady, saying that to remain in my room, not to leave, because there is now further information that's coming to light from the other judges, including one of the judges, he was the Papua New Guinea judge, the male, saying that he used red pen. He used a red pen to mark a score. Now, that's those scores that when we were told there was a tie, I got and when there is a tie, and I'll get to your question. When there is a tie, the head judge has a casting vote, and the head judge was me. Now, in the spirit of transparency, I got, what the other judges would think to assist me with my casting vote. And that's exactly what I did. Now, that's the second round of casting vote we were asked to do, because there was, according to the scrutiny list, there was a tie. Now, there was no rating.
An expert on Vanuatu says she hopes the new government lasts the full term so it can focus on rebuilding its devastated capital. Jotham Napat, the new Prime Minister, was elected unopposed in Parliament on Tuesday after a snap election on 16th of January. The 52-year-old president of the Leaders' Party is the country's 4th Prime Minister in 5 years. He heads a 5-party coalition government with more micro-parties likely to align with his administration in the near future. The snap election took place after a 7.3 magnitude earthquake struck Port Vila in December that killed 14 people and displaced thousands. Griffith University Associate Professor Tess Newton-Kane told Margot Staunton that Mr. Napat is the right man for the job.
He's been in the wings for a while, having held previously quite senior ministerial positions. So he comes with a great deal of experience. He's a former public servant. He's worked in the Ministry of Climate Change. So he obviously has a very strong technical understanding of that issue, which is a key one for Vanuatu. He's got a big agenda ahead of him, but I think generally people are feeling that he's a good choice.
Do you think he's the right man to perhaps bring some stability to the government? He's the fourth Prime Minister in 5 years.
Well, stability in government is not the job of one man. It requires a degree of consensus and compromise and coalition building and maintenance on the part of a number of people, particularly the leaders of the parties. So he's got a 5-party coalition that he's dealing with at the moment. I expect that now that the government has been established, he may find that there are other independents and single member groups that want to align with the parties who are members of that coalition. So he may have a number of other people to manage as well. But obviously it's about the process of stability, and it's a process, not a product, something that everybody needs to work at.
How awkward is it going to be to manage a 5-party coalition?
Well, Vanuatu has had coalition governments for quite some time now. Managing coalitions, it's a big job for the Prime Minister. He's the one that kind of has to make sure he's across everyone's concerns and priorities. This government seems to be taking quite a technocratic approach to its work. So we know that we're expecting a 100-day plan, which will no doubt be published or made public very soon. But they're also planning on having 3-month KPIs for ministers and senior officials and 3-month performance reviews, which I understand they seem to be taking very seriously. So all of that is part of how he can make sure that he's kind of keeping in touch with all the various members of this coalition and hopefully ensuring that they're working together. Under the terms of the new rules for Parliament, further to a referendum last year, independents and parties that only have one member need to align with bigger parties. And I think now that the government has been established, it's likely that those who have not already aligned will want to align with parties that are in the coalition.
And what are the main challenges that are facing this new government? One of the main criticisms during the snap election was that the people felt that the government had put politics before the people.
Well, I don't think that's a complaint that's particular to Vanuatu. I think you'll find that most people in countries with democratic elections feel exactly the same. And obviously the people are very concerned that the instability and going back to elections gets in the way of really achieving important policy outcomes. For this election, there was a particular focus on how the government will address the rebuilding and rehabilitation of Port Vila Central Business District, and that will obviously be a big part of what this government has to deal with. But at the same time, there are other issues elsewhere in the country that require attention, and we've already heard from some of the senior members of this government that they're looking at increasing internet connectivity, making sure that service delivery really does try and get to that last mile where possible. So I think they're aware of what's expected and what's needed. They've obviously got a big job ahead of them. One of the other things that we've already heard from Prime Minister Napat is the importance he places on relationships with other countries and how he'll be working to meet with and talk with dialogue partners and development partners about how they can assist this government in meeting its agenda.
Anything else you'd like to add at this stage about the new government?
There's a lot of people that have been in government previously. There's a lot of old faces, particularly in the ministries. I think what we would really hope to see is a combination of experience and knowing how to do the job, but also a refreshed commitment to focusing on the bigger picture and being there for the full parliamentary term and really seeking to get some important policy items achieved.
The Pacific Investigative Journalism Organisation has revealed that the Governor of Papua New Guinea's central bank, the Bank of PNG, was the subject of a police money laundering investigation. The Governor, Elizabeth Jenia, has not been charged over the investigation, and there's been no public revelation about the matter in PNG. Don Wiseman spoke with the OCCRP's Aubrey Belford.
The OCCRP, how would you define it?
OCCRP is the Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's in the name. We're one of the biggest international networks of investigative reporters looking into issues of transnational crime and kleptocracy, including in the Pacific.
You had a reliance on support from various agencies, and one of those was USAID.
That's right. Our work in the Pacific was not actually funded by USAID, although we did start in the region with a US grant from DRL, which is the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labour. That's also been affected. So globally, we've lost about 29% of our funding due to the US freezing their foreign aid. So we still are a functional organisation. We've had to tighten our belt a little, and we've also managed to move around some of our global funding to continue supporting our work in the Pacific. So we're still here.
How important is your work, do you think, in the Pacific?
I mean, I like to think our work's pretty important. The Pacific is, a very vast region that's now become an area of geostrategic competition. It's also a region where there are real problems with, development aid going where it shouldn't go, and corrupt politicians stealing money, organised crime moving in. So it's really important to empower local media to be able to expose wrongdoing that's going on and let people know when their money is going missing, or let people know when, their leaders are not doing what they should in regards to anti-corruption.
In terms of that, what would you say is the most significant story you've been involved with in the Pacific?
I mean, we've done quite a few. One of the more interesting ones is exposing the nexus between the Chinese Communist Party and organised crime networks that are in the region. I'm particularly proud of those reports. We have done stories on Manasseh Sogovare's undeclared wealth in Solomon Islands. We've also done stories that are, really important to people's daily lives, like how Honiara ended up not getting the water treatment plant it so desperately needs because of a bungled project from the Asia Development Bank. So, I mean, we've exposed a lot in the roughly 3 years we've been in the region. We've really punched above our weight.
In a very recent story, you've raised concerns about the governor of the Bank of PNG, the Reserve Bank there, the central bank. What are your concerns?
I wouldn't say they're our concerns. I mean, we're just reporting what we found. But what we have reported today is that the governor of the Bank of Papua New Guinea, Elizabeth Genia, was the subject of a police fraud squad investigation in PNG into suspicions of money laundering offences at the time that she was appointed to head the bank. Now, she managed to get a stay on this investigation in the National Court at the time that she was appointed, but then she lost her case and the court threw it out and said it was an abuse of the court's process. So we're not exactly sure where that case is now and if there's any appeal going on. We also found out there was another investigation into her in relation to a deal to dispose of the bank's guns and buy new ones. So yeah, that's what we've revealed today.
Ms. Genia, as you say, she hasn't been charged. So where does that leave the story at this point?
I mean, we tried to get more information from Ms. Genia. We reached out to her with detailed questions quite a while ago. She didn't reply. We also reached out to the minister responsible, the treasurer, Ian Ling Stuckey, and he refused to answer our questions and, called us fake. And asked for our credentials. And so I sent him our credentials and he still didn't answer the questions. So, we're hoping that we can get a bit more clarity on this because it is, a pretty significant issue for PNG. The Bank of PNG has had quite a few challenges recently, and the country is facing what's known as grey listing from the Financial Action Task Force, the international intergovernmental watchdog on financial crimes. So, yeah, I mean, we'll be watching it closely, and I think a lot of people will be watching it closely.
Given the funding issues that you're now faced with, are you able to replace that money easily?
We're hoping we're able to replace that money. We are in talks with some potential donors. I won't disclose who they are, but I think this report we put out today, along with the other ones, I think really underscores the importance of funding investigative journalism in the region, because otherwise these stories just do not see the light of day. So I think the Pacific's traditional development partners really should, give this serious consideration, because dollar for dollar, you do not get a better return on your investment than funding anti-corruption journalism, because when we're able to ensure that there is a clean and transparent system, then that means that, the money that is meant to help people in the region does not go to waste.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.